All right. Oh, thank God it's over. Okay. So, man, that was a violent speech. He said, crucible of fire, bloody fists, bayonets in the hearts. Talked about iron will, it reminded me of Iron Cross a little bit. He said, God is on our side, which again, if you don't know the reference, and it's a normal thing to say in other contexts, but, and I don't think that he necessarily meant it this way, but I know that the Germans on their belt buckles had the saying, Gott mit uns. And what that means is God is with us. So every time there is a new bully in the world, he always claims, don't worry, God is with me, and I have bayonets ready to thrust into hearts and fists ready to get bloodied. And so now it's in the streets of Washington, D.C., and some of those folks are now being used in the streets of Los Angeles against our own citizens. Now, on a lighter note, guys, he mentioned the Gold Star families in the beginning of the speech, and of course, he attacked Gold Star families when he was running the first time around, and I wanted everybody to remember that as he pretends to care about them. And then he mentioned feet a couple of times for some reason, and then I thought that's funny because if you remember, he did not go to Vietnam because he claimed he had problems with his ankles, his heels, and he said when they asked him, this is my favorite part, when they asked him which heel did you have a problem with, he couldn't remember, so he said both. And we found out later, of course, that he didn't have any problem with his heels. It was a doctor's note that his dad got for him, and I think if I remember right, he reduced the rent for the doctor's office in order to get that letter written so that someone else could go die in Donald Trump's place. And that's always what happens with these cowards, right? Oh yeah, I'm big and tough and I'm gonna go start wars you don't need in Iraq, Iran, and Vietnam and all these places. Are you gonna go, oh no, oh my heel, oh the left one or the right one, or whichever one the doctor pretended I had a problem with. So look, we've got other guests coming up and there's other facts that we wanna share with you guys. But Nina, before we go, I know you're working on the freedom budget, and from the civil rights era, and as we see this enormous waste of money in Washington, in LA, and with the overall budget, tell us about the freedom budget and what we could be spending it on instead.
Yeah, thank you for that, Cenk. And again, to the people who serve, God bless them. This just makes my heart ache because this is not how you show love. This is a false equivalency that this president is given. He's talking about George Washington. He's talking about every war. Meanwhile, when African Americans fought in those wars, they could not be treated like equals. George Washington was a slaveholder. I have two grandfathers on my maternal and paternal side who fought in World War II, and I have uncles who went to Vietnam. And most of the people who have to go to war are working class people, are being sent to go to war. So the things, Cenk, that this money could be being spent on is universal health care, increasing the minimum wage, no more wars, making sure that people have a guaranteed income, education, farm parity. Those are the kinds of things. When we think about domestic tranquility, being strong is more than having a strong army or other branches of the military. Being strong means that we have a United States of America that's worth the military protecting. So we need to ask ourselves this question: what type of America is military protecting? One that leaves almost 500,000 people homeless or unhoused on the street. One that has not raised the minimum wage, that is still $7.25. And don't get me started on the sub-minimum wage. Are we protecting an America that forces people to put their insulin on credit cards, or 68,000 people who die every year, or the millions who are uninsured or uninsured? What kind of America do we want our military to protect, Cenk? That this relative status and people up there cheering, all of that stuff. Most of those people are working class people. They don't even know what they're clapping for. They just up there clapping. All of this is smoke and mirrors. And if this president really loved this country, he would be using all that chutzpah that he has, all that bravado that he has, to ensure that material conditions change for everybody, but especially the enlisted people of this country. I'm just outdone with it, Cenk. Really.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
freedom budget for all Americans.
At the same time, he's looking to cut veterans' benefits, right?
Yes.
He's looking to cut
Yes.
cut the health care that they need because they got wounded in these wars.
That's right.
Yeah. And then every once in a while, you need to have people like Jon Stewart push from the outside just to get help to first responders, and they never. I looked it up a couple of years back, and because all this idea talk of support the troops, support the troops, I said, great. Let's see. Let's look into the budget and see how much are they paying the service members. Incoming service members a couple of years back, it's now a little bit higher. Yes. There's yearly salaries, $19,000 a year, $19,000 a year. Where's this? And now it's a little bit above 20,000. Where's the support of the troops? No support for salaries, no support after the war, only support for giant defense contractors. Yeah, and so look, last quick thing here is we got to keep going. Nina, to your point, there's a guy that's still around that was connected to the civil rights movement. His name is Jesse Jackson. And when I was a young kid in college, I was a Republican, and I went to see Reverend Jackson's speech on my campus, and he begun to move me towards the left. And this story he told was about his dad, who was in World War II, and he said that they were in this pitched battle against the Nazis, and they won, and they captured a whole bunch of Nazis, and then they got on a train back to their base with their prisoners of war, right? And the black,
what you about to say?
The black U.S. soldiers had to sit behind the Nazis, and so things are not what they appear oftentimes, and so. That is a heartbreaking story of America. And it doesn't mean that we can't get better and that we haven't gotten better, but it feels oftentimes, Nina, as we take one step forward, we wind up taking 2 steps back. And here we are 2 days into a new war in the Middle East and Marines in the streets of LA.
That's right. That's right, Cenk. And I know you got to go to break and I'm leaving, but Asa Philip Randolph was one of the authors of the Freedom Budget. And I just want to read one quote from him. Patriotism has no appeal to us. Justice has. Party has no weight with us. Principle has. Loyalty is meaningless. It depends on what one is loyal to. So we really need to redefine as Americans what we are loyal to in the spirit of Asa Philip Randolph, one of the architects of the Freedom Budget and one of the greatest unionists and civil rights leaders of the 20th century. What are we loyal to?
Yeah, and what would be amazing if we were loyal to one another instead of these corporations that have taken over, including the defense industry. All right, Senator Nina Turner, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.